I was a junior library assistant because I needed the stipend and the air conditioning. Tuesdays were inventory days. Scan, reshelve, repeat. So I was there late, sitting behind the circulation desk with the scanning gun in my palm like a warm plastic mouse. It was early winter, already dark at 5:06 p.m., the windows reflecting our overhead lights back at us so the library felt like a bright aquarium floating in a black ocean. Ms. Phelps, our librarian, was in the back office wrestling the label printer into doing what label printers never want to do. She was one of those teachers who remembered everyone's reading tastes and somehow also your sibling's birthday. When the PA crackled, I expected the office secretary's sleepy voice with a bus change. Instead, it was Assistant Principal Harner, and he never used the PA at this hour. Attention staff and students, we are initiating a lockdown. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Teachers, follow procedures. Students remain in place. It felt like my stomach slid off my ribs and pooled in my shoes. Ms. Phelps stepped out with the printer label stuck to her sleeve like a bandage. "Okay," she said softly, like she was trying not to startle a deer. Lights, doors. We knew the routine. Every month we did Alice or Run, Hide, Fight training. We watched the grainy district video with the peppy voiceover and the too loud background music. In the moment, it felt like theater. Now, Ms. Phelps moved with the calm of someone who had rehearsed the blocking 100 times. She locked the front double doors with the Allen key, pulled down the blackout shades, waved me to hit the light switch behind the desk. The library sank into a shadowed gray. The fishbowl became a cave. Somewhere out in the school a door slammed, then another. Distant feet. The building felt alive in a way it never did during the day. We had 5 students in the library, 2 freshmen working on a poster, a senior cramming calc, and a sophomore with headphones, lips moving to lyrics. Everyone looked to Ms. Phelps. She pressed her finger to her lips and gestured toward the back, toward the stacks and the little office suite. The library had a safe room built into the 2015 renovation, a windowless workroom lined with metal shelving and a heavy door that opened outward. The district paid extra for the outward swinging door because some consultant had said it mattered. Phones started buzzing all at once. The district text alert came through with the long paragraph you never think you'll read. Lockdown. Shelter in place. Law enforcement en route. No details. The calc senior whispered, "Is it real?" and then flinched because we weren't supposed to talk. Ms. Phelps herded us gently but firmly down the biography aisle and past the AV closet into the workroom. I closed the door behind us. She slid the bolt, then turned off that light too, so we were in the dark, our breathing loud. The workroom had that stale, papery smell of old bookmarks and dust. We crouched between rolling carts. Somewhere, someone's stomach growled, enormous in the quiet. I could hear Ms. Phelps counting under her breath. She did that when she was nervous, counted silently to keep herself from filling the air with teacher talk. At 5:13, my mom texted, "You okay? News says there's police at your school." I typed, "I'm with Ms. P," and put my phone face down. You're not supposed to illuminate yourself. I had learned that in a video, narrated by a man with an aggressively calm voice. We stayed like that for maybe 3 minutes, maybe 30. Time goes gummy. Then, footsteps. Not the vague thump of a hallway door, but the soft, rubber-soled sound of someone inside the library. Close, slow. Every breath stopped. Even the heating system seemed to hold itself still. The steps moved parallel to us, out in the stacks. One shelf over. A book slid against another with a sound like a hiss. My whole body turned into one listening ear. The doorknob to the workroom shifted. It rattled once, lightly, like a curious toddler. Then harder. It held. The bolt is good. The person exhaled, a small, irritated sound, and then something metal clinked against the knob. Keys. We all turned to Ms. Phelps. Even in the dark, her eyes flashed. She mouthed, "No one has those keys but me." But the rattling of the ring had that heavy, authoritative weight of real keys, not some student's set. The person tried the key. It didn't fit. Tried another. Didn't fit. We heard them mutter something too quiet to catch. Then the soft, grippy squeak of rubber soles again as they moved away, deeper into the stacks. A book tumbled. The headphone kid made a sound that was almost a squeak. Ms. Phelps squeezed his shoulder. My brain started doing a useless loop. Who had keys? Custodians. Administrator. Security. Ms. Phelps. If the person had keys and they didn't fit this lock, maybe they'd only taken some keys. Maybe they didn't know which was which. A sideways thought. Our circulation desk has a drawer with a spare set taped under the pencil trays for substitutes. Ms. Phelps must have been thinking the same thing because she squeezed her eyes shut and shook her head once, very slightly, like she was pushing a thought away she didn't want me to see. 5:19. Another message. Police on site. Stay in place. A second later, a second tone. About 20 phones chiming in chorus. The person out there would know there were people in here. The footsteps returned. This time they were faster, more certain. They stopped right outside our workroom door again, and then, steady as a metronome, the person began knocking. Not pounding. A series of precise, evenly spaced knocks. 5. Then a pause. Then 3. Then 5 again. It was so deliberate it made my teeth ache. The Calc kid started to cry silently, shaking so hard his binder rings clinked. I put my hand on his shoulder and could feel his pulse jumping. The knock stopped. A moment later, we heard the soft thump of something being slid along the floor. Under the door, a library checkout card. One of the old ones, yellowing index cards we used for displays sometimes. On it, in neat block letters. Open, it's Harner. We looked at each other in the dim. The Calc kid mouthed no so emphatically it was almost comic. Ms. Phelps leaned forward, picked up the card, and tilted it to catch the ambient glow leaking around the doorframe. She pressed her lips together, thinking. Then she did something I didn't expect. She bent the card in half, sniffed it, and then, I swear to God, licked the edge of it. Later, when we were safe, I would remember that moment as the single silliest and bravest thing I ever saw a teacher do. She shook her head. Sharpie. Her whisper was smaller than a breath. Harner uses ballpoint on everything, she mouthed. He hates Sharpies. Says they bleed through. She had apparently memorized the pen preferences of our admin. The person outside waited. The doorknob turned again and stopped against the bolt. The keys scraped. One slid in and stuck halfway. The person cursed, definitely a voice now. Not Mr. Harner, younger, breathy, close enough that my skin crawled from the intimacy of it. Then, distant but unmistakable, we heard another voice from the hallway. Police, identify yourself. Hands up, step out. A radio crackled. The person outside our door froze, then moved quick, steps that scuffed and caught. A half run straight out past the periodicals and toward the emergency exit. A crash. The alarm by the library exit screamed to life, the horrible high-pitched one that makes your eyes water. We stayed put. If you train long enough, you resist your own instincts. 2 minutes later, maybe 10, there was a knock at the library's front doors, a rapid tattoo that made everyone flinch. Sheriff's Department, call out if you can hear me. We stayed silent until Ms. Phelps used the written code word we'd been told to use. The deputy repeated the matching word. Only then did she slide the bolt. He swept the room with a flashlight beam that made me feel like I was made of glass. They found the spare key drawer at the circulation desk half open. The spare set had been ripped away, leaving a ragged strip of gray duct tape and a dust shadow in the exact shape of a key ring. They also found a backpack by the emergency exit, with a hoodie, gloves, and a campus visitor sticker peeled off and stuck to the inside pocket. No ID, no weapon, just a small pry bar and a notebook full of dates and room numbers. The earliest entry was September 19th, Ms. P's office after school. Harner showed up an hour later with his tie loose and his face looking older than it had at noon. He took one look at the card with "Open, it's Harner" and said, "I don't write my capital R that way." And then he hugged Ms. Phelps, which I'd never seen him do with anybody. The police walked us out past the math hallway. On the bulletin board, someone had posted a lost and found photo of a single brass key with a rounded head and a piece of blue tape on it labeled AV. Underneath, in tiny print, "Found in cafeteria. September 28th. 2 weeks later, they arrested a former student who'd dropped out last year, a kid everybody remembered because he ate lunch in the stairwell and wore the same black windbreaker every day, no matter the heat. He'd been seen in the neighborhood again and again. A neighbor tipped them after the lockdown made the local news. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at his yearbook photo and felt two conflicting truths slam into each other. I was furious that he'd been inside our library, and I knew exactly which books he would have taken if we'd still stamped cards into pockets. He had checked out a dozen thrillers last year, all in the same hand, all signed back in with a different pen. The creepiest part wasn't the idea that he wanted to hurt anyone, though the police reports never said either way. It was the methodical feeling of it, the planner's notebook, the visitor sticker, the steady knock knock knock. The card in Sharpie pretending to be Harner, and the way Ms. Phelps had known, from a smell and a bleed-through, that the world right outside our door was lying to us. I still work Tuesdays, I still scan barcodes, and I still keep my own little key on a lanyard around my neck. When I lock the workroom, I tug twice, and I run my thumb over the bolt until I feel the metal warmth of friction. It's a ritual, now. We all have them. You need something to do with your hands when the building gets that quiet, like the night is pressing its ear to the glass. I didn't plan on coaching JV that night. Coach Rivera's wife went into labor early, and the athletic director waved me down in the parking lot at 3:12 p.m. "Can you sit with the girls till practice ends?" he asked, already half running toward the main office with a box of Gatorades under one arm. "Roll a ball out, stretch, keep them inside. You're a social studies teacher, you can handle teenagers." So that's how I ended up in the echoing gym with 12 JV girls who respected Coach Rivera more than God and tolerated me the way you tolerate a sub, politely, while making your own decisions. We ran layup lines. I called out numbers on the scoreboard to trick them into sprinting. 10 seconds to beat your best, let's go. They laughed at me when I tripped over the agility ladder. At 4:21, our school's weathered PA speaker above the gym office crackled and then delivered the same sentence I hope you never hear outside a drill. "Lockdown. This is not a drill. Teachers, follow procedures." I'd practiced this, of course. Every teacher does. But practice is like shooting free throws, empty gym. The game doesn't sound the same when the crowd is real. "Bench," I said before they could look at their phones. "Now, huddle." The girls trotted over, still catching their breath, water bottles bumping. I did the speech I'd been taught. "We're going quiet. We're going dark. We're staying put until law enforcement releases us." My hands shook. I pressed the button on the gym office door and waited for the thick click of the auto lock. Then I hit the house lights. The gym folded into a dusk, broken only by the high window slits up by the ceiling. "Phone's off," I said, and lied because I didn't turn mine off either. I stuffed it into my back pocket on vibrate. "We're going to the locker room." The girls looked at one another. The locker room made sense. But the locker room also made all of us think of tiled echo, metal doors, too many entrances and exits. The gym had 2 entrances, main hallway and the loading bay. The locker rooms had 3, to the gym, to the asphalt, to the pool corridor. Instead, I took them to the equipment cage. Every gym has one, a metal mesh room behind the bleachers with a sliding grate door and rows of balls, cones, mats, and oddly, a stack of church basement-looking folding chairs. I closed the grate, clicked the padlock, and then set a row of the heavy medicine balls along the bottom as a stupid extra barrier because I needed to do something. We crouched behind the stack of mats. 12 teenage girls do not go silent easily, but fear stitches mouths shut. You can hear your own skin. The noises came in layers. Distant locker slams, a whistle from the swim coach who hadn't heard the PA yet, the whir of the big gym ventilation fans. Then a new sound, metal on metal out by the loading bay doors. A long, teeth-on-edge screech, like someone dragging a metal pole along the roll-up slats. I felt the girls tilt toward me, a collective lean. I made my voice slow. "Stay down." The screeching stopped. A few seconds later, there was the soft, rubbery thump of footsteps on the gym floor. Not many, not running. Whoever it was moved like they knew not to make a silhouette in the door windows. I could see exactly one slice of the court through the equipment cage mesh, a strip of hardwood and a corner of the free throw line. Something moved through that slice. Just a shadow crossing a darker shadow. My phone buzzed. District alert. Law enforcement responding. Stay in place. Another buzz. My wife. Are you okay? I typed, with JV and Jim. Quiet, and shoved the phone away. The person whistled, a tune. It took me a second to recognize it, the marching band warm-up phrase they use for scales at football games. Whoever it was, they'd been here enough times to get that stuck in their head. Or they were making fun of us. The girls were breathing too fast. One had her inhaler out but was too scared to use it. I nodded at her, counting with my fingers. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. It gave us both something to do. A flashlight beam jittered across the bleachers and landed on the equipment cage mesh, then skated off. The beam returned, slower, tracing the mesh like a fingertip. It stopped on the padlock. The light lifted and swam away. After a minute, the loading bay door rattled. The whistler went back there, then the sound of tape peeling, then more metal screech. Our loading bay door had one of those ancient chains you pull to haul it up. It shouldn't have moved without the motor engaged. It moved anyway, inch by grating inch. Someone had brought something to help lift it, maybe a car jack, maybe a crowbar, maybe just determination and time. I had to make a call, stay and hope the equipment cage was enough, or move while the person was distracted. I pictured the layout like a map: equipment cage, court, gym office, second door to the athletic training room, interior hallway to the main office. The athletic training room had a solid door and no exterior windows. If we could reach it, we could barricade and be 3 doors deeper into the building. I mouthed to the girls, "We're moving. Low. Quiet. Follow my hand." I slid the padlock off, grateful for the way the metal didn't squeal this time. I rolled one mat out like a curtain so anyone looking our way would see a dark rectangle instead of 12 moving shapes. We went single file along the bleacher backs, hands brushing the cold bleacher metal for balance. My heart was a drum in my mouth. Halfway across, a whistle blew sharp and close, not the swimming coach. The flashlight beam blazed across the court. It hit the floor in front of us, then climbed. A white bar. We froze. The beam paused, searching, then cut away again. Whoever held it had poor technique. They weren't sweeping. They were staring at their own light. We reached the gym office. I closed the door, turned the thumb lock, and pushed the low filing cabinet in front of it. The girls squeezed in around the desk and the trophy case filled with district plaques from 2004. We went dark. From the office you can hear the hallway. We heard feet sprint past, a radio, then an adult voice that made me sag with relief. "Sheriff's Department, announce yourself." A second voice echoed somewhere by the cafeteria. The building had police. Thank God. But the person by the loading bay didn't announce anything back. The whistling started again, softer now, like the person had moved further into the gym toward the far exit. Something hit the gym office door, a single heavy rap, not the police knock you hear in movies, a fist, then a voice through the wood, low enough I thought I might have invented it. "Coach." I didn't respond. I had been a sub. I was dressed like a coach, black quarter zip, whistle in my pocket, but no one would call me coach. They'd call Rivera coach or Thompson coach. They'd call me Mr. Nolan. "Coach," the voice repeated. "Open up. I know you're in there." One of the girls whimpered. I pressed my palm to the side of the trophy case to keep it from rattling. The door handle turned, the lock held. The person leaned their weight against the door so hard the filing cabinet moved an inch. Then they laughed once, breathy and wrong, like someone testing how a laugh sounds in a room. There is a moment in every lockdown where you realize how flimsy a hollow core door feels. Training videos don't prepare you for that. "Coach," the voice said again, right at the seam of wood and frame. "Check your phone." The room went even quieter, the way sound seems to disappear when your brain refuses to process it. I did check my phone because I am not the hero in movies who does the right thing without curiosity. There was a text from a number not in my contacts. It contained a photograph of the gym, taken from the top row of the bleachers, angled down. In the photo, taken minutes ago, you can see the equipment cage where we had been. You cannot see faces. But you can see the black quarter zip I was wearing, a V of shadow at the collar. The caption below the photo: "You look official." I swallowed hard enough to hurt. The girls stared at me, waiting for me to be the adult. Then, blessedly, a voice shouted from down the hall. "Police!" Step away from the door. A shock of footsteps. A radio again. The person on the other side of our door didn't wait. We heard the loading bay chain rattle one last time. The roll-up door yawning open enough for a human body. Cold air moved through the gym and slid under our office door like a fog. A car engine revved outside, not in the lot but behind the building where deliveries come. Tires squealed. Then, silence. Lockdown held. They released us room by room. The athletic director's face looked 10 years older when he unlatched the office and found 12 girls pressed together like a single animal. He ushered them out first. I followed. The load door was up 2 feet, bent, and sprung from being forced. On the concrete by the chain, someone had left a thin roll of duct tape, a pair of cut zip ties, and a lanyard with a visitor badge on it. The badge had been printed that day at 3:02 p.m. The name field was blank. The barcode was real. We use self-serve stickers in the main office if the secretary is busy. Anyone can type visitor. The sheriff called me later that night to ask about the text. The number was a burner. The photo angle told them the person had been inside for a while before the lockdown, high enough to look down. The whistled band. Warm up? The deputies thought it might have been a way to test who in the gym belonged, to see who reacted. Only someone who'd been to games would know the tune. They pulled camera footage. The person had come in with parents during varsity practice hours, hoodie up, face down, sticker on, hands in pockets, walked like they were trying to remember their own body. The creepiest part for me wasn't the photo or the way my own name, Coach, felt corrupt in someone else's mouth. It was the precision of how they moved in our space, how they stared from the bleachers long enough to choose the moment, how they knew to go for the loading bay first, how they said, "I know you're in there," without ever actually knowing anything at all. Confidence becomes a costume. If you act like you belong in a school, people will smile at you in the halls. For 3 weeks, I wore a different jacket to work. It feels superstitious to say it helped, like changing your free throw routine after a miss. The girls teased me for it in a way that told me they were okay. They learned, without me having to say it out loud, that I am not Coach Rivera, not the guy with the playbook and the whistle bark. I am the guy who will wedge a filing cabinet into a door frame with a knee and a shoulder if that's what a minute requires. I didn't volunteer to coach again, but I did not say no either. You can't say no to a building that holds your life most of your waking hours. You learn its noises and what they mean. You learn to listen for the wrong ones. Every art teacher is part custodian, part counselor. By the end of the day, my room at the far end of the art wing looked like an explosion of paper cranes and acrylic paint tubes. I stayed late grading portfolios, which meant I stayed late scrubbing brushes. The sink in 214 takes 5 full minutes to cough itself awake, and even then the water comes out with a metallic tang that makes you feel like you're washing knives. At 6:02 p.m., the PA popped like a bubble. Lockdown, this is not a drill. My first thought was weirdly domestic. Did I leave the kiln on? Then the training took over. I turned off my room's lights. The evening dim made the student paintings on the walls look like the ghosts of themselves. I locked the hallway door and the doors to the courtyard. My classroom has 2 doors, the hazard no one mentions until you're holding a key in each hand. The art wing is an addition from 2009, all glass and concrete and enthusiasm for natural light. The hallway has floor-to-ceiling windows that face a little interior courtyard with a sculpture that looks like a question mark. At night, those windows become mirrors that show you your own fear. I texted my husband. "Lockdown. I'm in my room." He answered immediately. "I'm parked by the stadium. Do what you have to. I'm here." I pulled the black paper shades we keep for critiques, slid them into the window frames until the room felt like the inside of a camera. Then I climbed into the storage closet, which is a misnomer. It's really more like a narrow hallway lined with flat files and mannequin torsos and a shelf of glaze jars that look exactly like baby food. The closet has a solid door that closes tight. I sat on a stool and listened. Footsteps in the art wing sound different from footsteps in the main building. The concrete floors have a hollow ring, and the sound travels like a metal ruler flicked against a desk. I heard them almost immediately. A pair of steps, then a pause, then another pair. That cadence you get when someone is looking into rooms as they move. I held my breath and stared at the faint strip of light under my classroom door. A shadow crossed it, stopped, moved on, came back. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I checked it behind the shelf with the glaze so the light wouldn't bleed. District, police on site. Remain in place. A second later, a text from an unknown number. "Are you still working?" I almost laughed because the part of my brain that handles sarcasm didn't power down with the lights. I blocked the number. 5 seconds later, another text from a different number. 214? I looked at the clock on the kiln controller and concentrated on breathing in slow squares. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. The square trick I teach freshmen during critique week so they don't hyperventilate when someone calls their painting derivative but really means "I see your influences." The doorknob to my classroom jiggled. It didn't turn. I had locked it. Then someone knocked. 3 short taps. A voice. "Ms. Lowe?" I didn't move. The voice continued, a slow, respectful tone like a student asking a question after class. "It's Officer Reed." Can you open up for me? We don't have an Officer Reed assigned to our campus. We have Officer Celeste. Officer Reed is a name you'd invent if you didn't know ours. Training says don't open. Wait for your room to be cleared by an administrator with a master key. I stayed still enough to feel my pulse throb in my eardrums. The voice tried again, softer. Please, Ms. Lowe, it's cold out here. Weird detail to say in an interior hallway. The doorknob stopped. Silence. Then, a sound my brain didn't place immediately because it was so small, the faint graze of paper against glass. Whoever was out there was sliding something under the little safety gap of the door. A piece of paper with one sentence written in Sharpie. We have your husband outside. He wants to speak to you. It wasn't the threat that froze me, it was the specificity. My husband was outside. He texted me. He is always outside when something goes wrong. He would definitely ask to talk to me if he thought it would help. The handwriting had the neat block letters of someone who'd practiced copying print. There was a tiny smear where the Sharpie had blotted. Real enough to look real. Another piece of paper slid under, a printed photo. It was too dark in the closet to see it, but I could tell from the thick, glossy feel that it was a photo. I angled my phone low and tapped the screen on the dimmest setting, cupping the light. The photo showed the stadium lot. I recognized my husband's car, small, silver, leaning like it needed a nap. The photo was grainy. In the lower left, a timestamp, 5:41 p.m. Whoever had taken it had done so half an hour earlier, close enough to feel close, far enough to be older than this moment. My brain split into two voices. The first said, wait. The second said, he's outside, go. The first voice won, but it had to fight. The person at the door tried the handle again and then, like someone at the end of patience, slapped the door with their palm. The sound jumped the way sounds do when you're hiding. Then the footsteps moved away, slower. I heard the echo recede into the atrium, past the glass toward the sculpture courtyard. I moved to the closet door and put my ear against it. Outside, the building made its building noises, heat clicking through vents, a bathroom flush far down the hall, then another sound, out in the courtyard, the squeal of a marker against glass. A slow, squeaking line, then another, like someone writing on the window itself. The sound raised every hair on my arms. I crawled to the interior window that looked into the art room from the storage closet and edged the blackout paper 1 millimeter, just enough to see the courtyard through the slats. Out there, lit by the security lights, someone stood with their back to me, hood up, shoulder hunched. They had a whiteboard marker in one hand and were writing on the glass, big block letters facing into my classroom. Open, then, beneath it, now. They wrote like they were tracing the letters more than writing them, as if they'd practiced this word 100 times and wanted to get it perfect. I let the blackout fall and pressed my spine against the flat file until the metal edge bit. That pain oriented me. I needed to do something besides wait. Something small. Something that changed the math of the doorway. In the closet, we have a door wedge carved by a student who didn't like the color of the plastic ones. It's a little oak triangle with his initials burned in with a soldering iron. You're supposed to wedge it to hold a door open. It works just as well to keep a door shut if you jam it under the hinge side. I crawled to the closet door, wedged it hard, and then rolled the stool behind it as quiet as I could. The stool's rubber feet squeaked anyway. A betrayal. I froze, counted to 8, then pulled 2 flat files out on their tracks to block the inside angle. It was a ridiculous barricade. It made me feel like I had agency. Minutes stretched. The security light outside clicked off, clicked on, clicked off. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was my husband, a photo from him of the stadium lot, live, where he'd taken a picture of his own hand making a thumbs up next to our car. I'm fine. Officers told me to stay put. Don't open for anyone. Cold honesty flooded me like a fever breaking. Down the hall, louder now, a voice I recognized. Police! Announce yourself! The radios crackled, multiple. The sounds came fast. Doors opened, keys rattled. Someone called my name, Officer Celeste this time, the real one. I answered with the code phrase the district made us memorize, and she replied with the second half. It felt like saying I do in a language only 2 people speak. They cleared my room, then my closet. I was shaking badly enough that Officer Celeste put her hand on my elbow like you do with elderly people on uneven ground. You good? She asked. I nodded, misled by my own always agreeable reflexes. They escorted me out through the art wing. On the courtyard glass, in perfect block letters, "Open Now" gleamed like frost. Next to it, lower, the person had added a smiley face, as if to prove they understood the rules of human punctuation. On the floor by the door lay a handful of printed photos: my husband's car, the stadium gate, a fuzzy shot of the art wing at dusk. Each had that timestamp. The latest read 5:57 p.m., which meant the person had been on campus taking pictures before the lockdown, then moved into position during. In the main office, the principal's voice shook when she told me they had already detained someone near the science wing, a person in a hoodie with a stack of visitor stickers in their pocket and a teacher's lanyard with the photo peeled off. The person had also printed out a list of staff directory numbers from our website, highlighted the after-hours club sponsors. They had circled Art, room 214. The deputy said gently, "Looks like you had a fan." I don't know if fan is the word I'd use. The word that lives in my mouth for this is watcher. Someone who had watched enough to learn our routines. Someone who had stood in our glass hallway and seen us think glass was pretty. Someone who knew that open is the word you use when you want to sound like you're helping, when you want to push kindness against policy. After they released us, I walked to the stadium lot with Officer Celeste beside me. My husband's car waited like a dog. He hugged me too hard and then too carefully, both at once. I told him about the paper shoved under the door, the fake cop name, the way the marker squealed. He said he'd seen a hooded figure slip between cars before the officers told him to stay put. He thought it was a student leaving practice. He'd thought a lot of things in the dark. You do. I went back to my classroom the next day with a pocket full of those cheap brown door wedges. I showed my first period how to brace a door quietly if they ever had to, and then apologized to the principal later for teaching things that aren't in the curriculum. She said, "Teach what keeps them here." I added a new rule to the art room poster, right under "No paint in the sink." Don't open doors you didn't lock. The creepiest part is not seeing a gun or hearing a shout. It's the ordinary asks, the ims. Low, in a voice that sounds like a question. It's the sound of your own phone vibrating with a photo of your car, a timestamp, a message that knows your language. It's the marker squeaking letters you teach kids to paint in block capitals so their science fair boards look clean. The thing that shakes you isn't the rare bang, it's how the familiar gets used like a key. I still stay late. Art teachers always do. I wedge the interior closet door now when I grade. I put the Sharpies in a drawer and use pencils for critiques. And sometimes when the hallway gets that aquarium quiet and the courtyard turns to a mirror, I watch my reflection in the glass and practice saying the words you can't unteach. No, not even if you know my name. Not even if you know my husband's car. Not even if you're smiling. If you enjoyed these stories, please take a moment to subscribe the channel. Your support matters a lot.